Hello and welcome to Always Bored Never Boring. Talisman. A cornerstone, not only of gaming but of my childhood. When I was young I loved Hero Quest, Space Crusade, Blood Bowl, eventually Warhammer Quest. You may know that already. But Talisman was one of the most played games in my house. I had the glorious 2nd edition with the Gary Chalk artwork and most of the expansions to ensure no two games were ever the same. And then when the 3rd edition came out, I bought that too, even though the art was really leaning into Games Workshop's garish mid-90s aesthetic. And I knew, even as a child, I knew it wasn't a sophisticated game. It was mechanically mundane. Roll a dice, move left or right, draw a card, maybe roll a dice again, and then wait for everyone else at the table to take a turn doing the same thing. But that mundanity was part of the charm. The game was appealing because it let you play out an adventure in a fantasy setting without complex rules and countless tokens. The same children who couldn't connect with Advanced Hero Quest or Magic Realm, the children like me, had the opportunity to throw dice and play out their fantastical dreams in a world of dragons and monsters. One board, one deck of cards, some plastic cones, and a handful of rules. That was all you needed to set out on an adventure. It's not easy to create a fantasy game that anyone can instantly engage with and understand, but Talisman nailed it. It's Monopoly for fantasy fans. And, admittedly, that doesn't sound like a compliment. But what elevates Talisman to the status of all-time classic is that fusion of the traditional and esoteric, that perfectly balanced blend of high fantasy, swashbuckling adventure, accessible rules, family-friendly dice-rolling fun, and not-so-family-friendly competition. And chaos. So much glorious chaos. For me, Talisman is similar to Dungeon Quest. Sure, you want to win, but it's more important just to see what happens. What kind of adventures will you have? What scrapes will you get into? How many times will you get to laugh at an opponent's misfortune or groan as you are swallowed whole by a dragon? These aren't games where you play it safe or worry about losing. You are just along for the ride. You should dive into every fight, go on every quest, die gloriously, write a story worth remembering. Indeed, taking risks is an important part of making Talisman work as a game. Unlike Dungeon Quest, there is no doom clock here, very few terrifying encounters with monstrous foes, and no permadeath. If all the players are content to go round and round the board forever, the quality of the adventure degrades. It feels not so much like you are going on a quest, but circling a drain. This game is best when you see it as a race, and you have at least one person at the table who is always pushing forwards, always defying the odds and maintaining the game's momentum. With just one brave soul prepared to take on new challenges, even if they are not fully equipped to do so, every other player has to match that energy or fear being left behind. That increases the tempo of the game and ensures gripping finales and photo finishes. And that is how Talisman generates an engaging experience. It provides a backdrop, a setting, a world to explore, but you and your friends and family bring the adventure. And so, Talisman, despite not being sophisticated or intricate or clever, despite being old-fashioned and potentially stodgy, has always had a place in my heart. Admittedly, I did skip the 4th edition completely, but I did want to pick up a copy of the 2nd edition for my collection, and then, when Avalon Hill revealed their shiny new 5th edition, well, that sealed the deal. The stunning artwork, the large spacious board, the lovely miniatures, and the promise of streamlined rules for new players. I was sold, and I knew I would have to pick up a copy. Then Avalon Hill kindly sent me a review copy, so big thanks to them for making this video possible and giving me a chance to get my thoughts out into the big wide world nice and early. And I assure you, this new edition is gorgeous. You get 12 miniatures, and they are all very good quality for board game pieces. I would say on par or exceeding the quality of the Hero Quest miniatures. And yes, the scaling is accurate for Hero Quest, so when they aren't on a quest for the Crown of Command, all of these miniatures can do double duty in Zargon's dungeons. Do note though, the original Talisman lineup had 14 characters, not 12. The Bard and the Druid are sitting out this new edition for the time being, although I do expect them to turn up in an expansion at some point. Every character also gets a character card with all their stats and special rules. These are just cards, they aren't on thick board, but they are well illustrated and formatted, and they have this neat little alignment badge in the top left that you can overwrite with a token during the game. And of course there is a character card for the Toad as well. Someone always ends up turning into a Toad. More on that later. There are 4 decks of cards in the box. That's 100 adventure cards, 18 purchase cards, 24 spell cards, and 4 talismans. They are stunning. Clear, readable, fantastically illustrated, and even the card backs are beautiful. Generally, I do prefer card backs to include text to indicate the card type. It just makes it easier to sort and store cards, and there is less confusion during gameplay, but it's not a major issue in Talisman, where only the adventure deck is drawn from on a regular basis. I would say the cards feel a little thin. The paper wrap they come in had damaged a few of mine at the edges, and they have a smooth front face and a slightly rough texture on the reverse. It doesn't particularly bother me, but I can see some players wanting to sleeve them to keep them in pristine condition and to aid shuffling. Talisman is a very streamlined game. Most of what it does through cards and interactions on the board, but you do get a selection of tokens for bookkeeping purposes. There are your cones of Dunshire in 3 colours for live, strength and craft. They are in 2 sizes, with a large cone being equal to 5 smaller cones. Then you get 30 plastic coins for tracking gold. They are embossed with cool talisman iconography, but they do feel a little cheap. Not flimsy, but light, like thick tiddlywinks. Considering the thick punchboard used for the fate tokens, alignment tokens and toad tokens, I do think I probably would have preferred the coins to be card as well, but that's just me. I do want to point out something about the fate tokens though. They are double-sided. One side is gold with a green gem inset, the reverse is purple and red with a sort of rose inset. At first I thought this was to represent fate for good or evil characters, just as a nice visual flourish, but the colouring and iconography doesn't match up with the alignment symbols, so possibly this has been done in preparation for new rules we will see in expansions. The box also includes 3 dice. These are awesome, and I can see dice collectors being interested in them. They have a marbled gold effect and a talisman symbol in place of the 6. If I had one complaint about them, and this is really picky, the shape of the talisman symbol makes it look like the dice face is slightly offset, with too much space around the top edge. I guess I wouldn't have minded a full set of 6 as well. Only occasionally do you have to roll more than 1 dice, so if Avalon Hill had included 6 dice, each player could have had their own. But that brings us to the board. We get a large board that folds out in 6 sections, and I have a suspicion Avalon Hill may use a similar design to cram the HeroQuest board into the new, smaller First Light core set box which was announced recently. The Talisman board has always been special to me. I remember losing myself in my own imagination tracing my journey from space to space, traversing the deadly crags and forests, exploring the caverns, crossing the Sentinel's Bridge. Each new edition of the game has put a new spin on the board, making it feel familiar yet exciting, and for the 5th edition, Avalon Hill have made a choice that is, possibly, divisive. I love this new board art and the clear banner text on each space. It's the world I remember, but viewed through a modern lens. And viewed from a different angle. I admit I didn't even notice this at first, but once it was pointed out to me I couldn't unsee it. Avalon Hill have made the choice to orient all the artwork so it's viewed from the top and facing inwards towards the centre. That's never been done before. For me, it works. I think it makes sense that this whole world is positioned so it faces inwards towards the Dragon's Lair and the all-important Crown of Command. It emphasises the direction of your journey and your ultimate goal. But it also means that no matter where you are sitting at the table, the spaces closest to you are oriented so they are upside down. The text is the right way up, but the artwork is reversed to how you might expect it to appear, and indeed how it appears on all previous editions of the board. Ultimately, even if you don't like that, I don't think it will ruin your enjoyment of the game, but it might take a little while to get used to. Speaking of getting used to something, Talisman 5th edition includes some updates to the rules, and this Avalon Hill has handled very respectfully. For the most part, rules are the same as 4th edition, and they are presented in a nice full-colour 32-page book with loads of examples and excellent artwork. However, throughout the text you will find a little 5th edition symbol, and this highlights paragraphs where rules have changed for this new edition. Also, there is a page at the front of the rules book that compiles most of these changes in one place, so if you are an old hand with Talisman, you don't need to read the whole rules book, you just need to read one page and you are ready to begin. And don't worry, the changes are relatively minor, and in most cases they have been made to speed up gameplay and to make everything a little less punishing when the randomness doesn't go your way. So, for all you 4th edition players, here are the main changes. 1. Now, to win you just have to get to the centre of the board and slay the dragon. 2. Talismans don't add to your carry limit, but you can only have one. 3. Players can pick their character rather than getting a random selection. The last player to pick goes first. 4. You can change your alignment at the start of the game, so if you want to be the ghoul but fancy being a good guy, that's possible. Let's face it, nobody ends the game with the alignment they started with anyway. 5. If you die, you keep all your objects, followers, spells, trophies, fate, gold, and earned stat increases. You are teleported to the village, and on your next turn you must buy as many life points as you can afford, up to your starting value. If you have no gold, you get 1 life. 6. Fate tokens can be used to re-roll a dice, but they can also be used to mitigate a bad movement roll. After rolling for movement, if you don't like your choices, you can spend a fate token to move up to 6 spaces in either direction on the outer or middle region of the board. You cannot use this feature to land on a rival character. 7. Transforming into a toad isn't so devastating. It only lasts for 1 turn, and you keep all of your objects, followers, and gold. You just can't use any of that stuff until you revert to normal. And 8. To level up your strength or craft, you no longer need to acquire 7 points of trophies. Instead, you have to acquire trophies that equal or exceed your current level in that stat. So if you have a strength of 4, you only need trophies equaling 4 points to increase your strength to 5. If you have a craft of 9, you need trophies equaling 9 points to increase your craft to 10. I would say of all these changes, I think only nerfing the hilarious toad transformation is going to upset people, but Avalon Hill have thought of that. In the back of the rules book, they have included the original toad rules as a more difficult variant. They have also included alternative ways of selecting a character to play, and the rules for character permadeath, where if you are defeated, you lose your character and must start next turn with a brand new character. You can mix and match these rules to taste to create the Talisman experience best suited to your gaming group. But I suppose if you're new to Talisman, you may still be wondering what exactly the Talisman experience is. Honestly, it is one of the simplest adventure games ever made, a perfect introduction to the genre for young and casual gamers. Each player is a character attempting to seize control of the Crown of Command, which is protected by a powerful dragon. This quest involves finding a talisman, a magical artifact granting access to the dragon's domain, and then traversing the outer, middle, and inner regions of the board to confront the big old lizard in a battle of brains or brawn. Each character has 3 stats: strength, a measure of physical ability, craft, a measure of mental ability, and lives, the number of wounds they take before being defeated. They also have unique abilities, and they all start with a certain amount of gold and fate points. On their turn, a player on the outer or middle region of the board rolls a d6 for movement, and then moves the full value of the roll. After moving, they can either interact with a character on their space, fighting them or using a special ability, or they interact with the space itself. Some spaces, such as the crags and tavern, have fixed events, and you have to roll a dice to see how it turns out. Sometimes bad things happen, sometimes good things happen, sometimes nothing happens. But most spaces require you to draw 1 or more adventure cards. You may find a monster, a useful item, a stranger, a follower who will join your party, a place of interest, or an event. Some cards you get to keep, some are encountered and discarded, while others stay on the board. In this way, you gradually build your own story within an ever-changing living world of adventure, where the once empty fields are suddenly stalked by demons, a kindly healer makes a home in the ruins, or a magical fountain is discovered in the deepest, darkest part of the woods. The focus of the game is very much on adventure, but you will have to fight frequently. Combat is simple. Roll a dice and add your strength if you are fighting in a battle against a physical foe such as a dragon, or add your craft if you are fighting a psychic combat against a spectral foe such as a ghost. Another player rolls for the monster, or themselves if you are attacking them, and the highest score wins. Losing will generally cost you a life point, although players can choose to steal gold or objects off each other instead. While winning a fight against a monster lets you take the card as a trophy, which you can eventually cash in to upgrade your strength or craft. And that's it. Sure, some characters may start with or gain access to spells, which can be employed for a variety of rule-breaking shenanigans, and there are countless ways in which your turn may deviate from the norm. You may be teleported to another location. You may be forced to only move 1 space. You may have access to a special ability that allows you to avoid or mitigate certain dice rolls. Or you may have access to objects and followers with all manner of different skills you can employ to assist you. And sometimes you get turned into a toad. But for the most part, on your turn you roll the movement dice, you move to a space, and then you either encounter a character, draw a card, or follow the rules printed on the board. And this goes on, and sometimes on, until eventually characters are strong enough to risk traversing the river and moving to the middle region. either by using an axe in the woods to create a raft, paying the ferryman at the tavern, risking a confrontation with the sentinel at the bridge, or finding some other means such as a magic portal or a dangerous route through the caverns. They then continue the process in the middle region, until they feel confident enough to make it through the Portal of Power to the inner region, where they can only move one space per turn as they advance through a gauntlet of the worst challenges the game can throw at them. Werewolves, vampires, death itself. But should they succeed and make it to the Valley of Fire with their talisman, they have finally earned the right to face the dragon in a final showdown to win the Crown of Command. It is basic. It is random. If players aren't pushing each other to keep moving, it is long and grindy. But it's fun. Silly, sometimes frustrating, always chaotic, fun. What is really enjoyable about the game is watching how your character develops. You don't really have a lot of control over this. The random pull of cards and the fateful clatter of dice will sculpt your hero for you, but it's interesting to see a legendary character emerge from the chaos. It really is fun to see a character's stats improve, to watch them accumulate powerful items and amass a group of followers who will all lend their skills on the quest. Maybe your warrior will find a princess. Now he can return the princess to the castle for a reward. Maybe he will find a magical sword and a suit of armor. Now he's in a better position to fight enemies in the wilderness. Maybe, in a twist of luck, he will overpower numerous spirit foes, boosting his craft score, and suddenly he has become a mage knight, capable of casting powerful spells as well as dual-wielding his swords. And what of the story of the honourable monk, who went on a pilgrimage but was confronted by the devil, changed his alignment to evil, and became a force of destruction? These are the tales that emerge from a game of Talisman, and you will probably either love to see those stories develop, or be utterly frustrated in your lack of agency to adapt or change that story to reflect the narrative you planned. Want to play a good hero but you've been converted to evil? Tough, you're evil now. Want to focus on building your strength but can't find any monsters to fight? Tough, you're destined to be a weakling for the rest of the game. Want to forge a heroic narrative but keep rolling ones for every encounter? Welcome to my world. But more importantly, welcome to the world of Talisman. It is a world that is suitable for families, children, gamers looking for a laid-back experience, or highly competitive gamers who intend to screw each other over every chance they get. It is a world that probably shares as much DNA with A Game of Life as it does with HeroQuest. And it is a world that has, despite the odds, stood the test of time. I, for one, am glad to have this chance to revisit. Talisman 5th edition is currently available for pre-order. You can get it direct from Hasbro, there's a link in the video description below, or Amazon, or you can check in with your favourite retailer. The first expansion, Talisman Alliance's Fate Beckons, which introduces cooperative and legacy gameplay elements, has been announced for release later this year. And that just about does it for me, except to say thank you to Avalon Hill and the always awesome Kaliber for making sure I got this review copy, and to say thank you for watching. If you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone, bye bye.